So I've decided on a combination of Terrifier reviews and content does pretty well on my channel, and the fact that I really, having read Terrifier 2 novelisation and seen Terrifier 3 and seen two first Terrifier movies, I really want to go back and watch them again. So that's what this video is about. I've gone back and watched the Terrifier. Well, I've watched Terrifier to start off with. I'll get back to the other two. And talk about sprinkling some details of Terrifier 2 novelisations as I go. But I just rewatched first Terrifier, and I actually didn't watch Terrifier, the franchise, for years and years and years. I knew of it, but to be honest, I wasn't really that interested until I got Paramount Plus, and it was for free on Paramount Plus. And I was like, oh, Terrifier 3's coming out. I should probably watch the others to see what all the hoopla is about. And I watched the first one, and look, I've watched horror movies for a very, very, very long time. I've seen some messed up stuff. I've seen Serbian movie. I've seen Megan's Missing. I've seen some Island Death. I've seen some messed up shit. Here's the thing, Terrifier. First time I watched the first movie, I thought, this is a bit grim. But at the same time, it hit me, I think, in different ways than a lot of people. Because while I did think it was very, very violent, and it is, even if you're a practice horror nut, this is still a very violent movie. I don't think it's so much the violence that really got to me. I think it's just the ugliness of the entire movie and universe. And I think that's credit to Damien Leone for directing it that way. Because I think I said this before, this feels like a grindhouse movie. And it's hard to explain exactly what that entails, because lots of people have tried over years, Tarantino and Rodriguez, tried and sort of succeeded for their movies, but for me, Grindhouse really boils down to there is something off about the movie, and it's not in terms of anyone involved is creep or anything like that, it's quantifiable and it's hard to really go into detail on, because it's more feeling than anything else. It's a feelings and aesthetic, and I think Terrifier definitely has this aesthetic of really doing a good job making you feel like something's wrong, like you're watching something off. It's really insidious. And I found the same thing watching Late Night with Devil when it hit the third act and all the madness was going on. I was like, this feels wrong, but in a good way. And to further explain that, you watch something like Friday the 13th, and it's even first one, which is good and unique and interesting, it doesn't, even like in a violent nature, it doesn't have that. That movie's really, really, really violent, but it doesn't quite have that sense of, even though they are going in that direction, and even Nightmare on Elm Street movies, maybe at the time they did, but now watching them, I'm like, I enjoy them, but they feel very slick, I suppose is the word I'm going for. Slick, well-produced movies, and not that this isn't a well-produced movie, but this movie feels nasty. I suppose that's the best way to phrase it, and a lot of reviews have come out about Terrifying franchise saying it's a video nasty, and I think they're approaching it from a standpoint of they think that's a bad thing. I don't. I think this really has that feel of some of those really vile movies. Like, for example, when I say vile, I don't mean bang them or anything like that. I just mean something like Island of Death, for example, which I actually respect a lot more than I used to. Because it's succeeding in the nature of the aesthetic it wants to achieve. It wants to make you feel uncomfortable. If the movie's goal is to do that, and it does that, that is a successful movie, even if you don't personally like it. And I don't personally like Island of Death. But I do like Terrifier, which is an interesting contradiction. But I think for me, the thing Terrifier really is art is unpleasant. Now, yes, I make jokes and I follow memes and all of that, but fundamentally, he's a horrible character. And not in a pantomime Hollywood way. And I'm not trying to say Freddy Krueger's pantomime, because I think it's a great slasher character. But what I'm saying is, if you had Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason, Art Clowning Room, they'd all look at Art like, what's wrong with you? Because Art has no boundaries. No backstory, really. I mean, the Terrifier 2 novelization makes some implications, and this movie makes some implications, but fundamentally, ultimately, he's just a nasty piece of work who does things because they're funny to him. And that's actually another thing I want to talk about. Watching this movie and having watched the other two, there's a lot in this movie. Now, I don't know whether Damon Leone was really setting things up, or whether, because I do know that it followed some short movies he makes starring Art and Clown, with just a slightly different version of Art and Clown. But I don't know if he thought I have a franchise here, or if he had ideas of where it could go, or what. Because there's definitely a sense in this movie where there's certain parts that do seem foreshadowing for later on. Now, that might be retroactive foreshadowing, which is something I'm quite guilty of in my own work. But I do think it's quite cool, and it's also cool to re-examine this movie in context of the other ones, because this is, like, on one hand, this movie's disconnected from the others, because the Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 obviously follows Sienna and her story, but in other ways, this feels like set up for that trilogy. But it's kind of interesting, normally you do that after, you know, you have a trilogy, and then you do a bridge gap to the next story. But he's told a story here, which is almost a bizarre origin story of the pale little kid from the second one. And it's fascinating to watch. It's like, how much did they plan? Like, again, it could be nothing. It could be they wrote a lot out just in case they made another one. But at the same time, this works as its own movie, and I quite actually like the opening part, where you find out Art survived, and you find out Victoria survived, and then you go through the movie, and you get like, oh, what's going on here? And, you know, like, you've already told us the ending. But then that just makes Art even worse, because he's just a vile force of nature more than character, to be honest. And I still find him very creepy. It's a great performance by Dave Howe Thornton, one of those two. He's really, really good in this. And I like this. I think it's good. I think you can say it doesn't really have a plot, but I don't really think that matters, because it's the atmosphere is so good at conveying what they want to convey, and it's so brutal. That's one thing I do want to really dwell on. It's a brutal movie, and Art has no compunction about he'll torture anyone. And it's also with, like, the piss and shit and all of that sort of stuff too. It's just really gloriously disgusting. And it's something the other movies go in detail with as well. Damon Leone really wants you to feel like you're watching something wretched and something that you almost shouldn't be allowed to watch, which is cool, because horror does become quite sanitized on occasion, and you get a lot of movies like Scream where you're sort of like, oh yeah, certain characters are in danger, but main characters aren't really in that much danger, you know, whereas this movie, everyone's in danger. I know they do stuff with Victoria, and it's sort of like, oh no, she's fine, but generally speaking, Art just attacks everyone in disgusting ways, and it's just kind of freaky to watch, but also kind of cool. Cool's the wrong word. It's nice to see a horror movie that does generally make you feel uncomfortable. Maybe some people it doesn't. That's fine, you know. But for me, it's like I just feel like I watch it on a critical level, but also on an emotional level. And this is especially true of reading Terrifying the food novelization, which really posits how awful the universe these characters exist in. Beyond Art, it's just a nasty, nasty universe. So yeah, I Terrifier I've watched again. I really enjoyed. I'm gonna go for 4 out of 5. Yeah, 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed that one, and be interesting to see how the other two fare on rewatch.